My little sister has had hypoglycemia and was sickly since childhood. Our parents always favored her. In October, I brought my boyfriend home, and my mom pulled me into the kitchen saying, "This guy seems nice. You should let your sister have him. You're a top university graduate. You'll definitely find someone else." After I graduated, my mom was always busy trying to find me a partner. But over the past 2 years, I haven't been home because of the pandemic, so I never met any of those men they picked for me. A month ago, my dad insisted I come home in October for a setup with this great guy, a small-town public enterprise leader, 10 years older, divorced with a 6-year-old daughter. His family owns a row of stores near the county bus station. Good job, and his daughter will get married out. Once you have a son, everything's yours. Isn't that better than overworking in the city? I was speechless. How could they suggest I become a stepmom? My dad softened his tone. "If you come back, our family can all be together." They rarely expressed any warmth towards me, so I felt a little touched. Then my mom chimed in, "He can also get your sister a job at his company. This is great for her." So that was it. I chuckled at myself. "Wendy, you never learn, do you?" I coolly replied, "Why not let my sister marry him then?" My mom blurted out, "No way. He's a whole cycle older than her. 10 years versus 12 years. What's the difference?" They wouldn't let their junior college graduate daughter marry him, but said he was a great match for their university graduate. As usual, favoritism reigned. My parents brought it up many times, but I never gave in. One morning at 4 a.m., my dad sent me his contact info. "Wendy, I used to get up this early to sell tea when you were sleeping. I'd always slip you some money. Remember?" I remembered. When my mom gave birth to me, she almost died, and our family was deep in debt. That's probably why she didn't like me much. When I was 6 months old, they went to work in Guangdong, leaving me with my grandparents. 2 years later, they had my sister and kept her with them. When my grandpa passed away when I was 9 and grandma got sick, they took me back. My sister slept with our parents while I stayed alone in a dark, damp room. At night, if I needed the bathroom, the country toilet was outside, I'd stay in bed, wrapped in a damp blanket, scared to go alone, and too frightened to wake my parents. I often dreamed I'd found the bathroom, then wet the bed. In the morning, my sister would laugh. "You're so old and still wet the bed, shame." My mom scolded me while changing the sheets and found $5 under my pillow. My sister wanted it too, so my mom gave her the $5 and handed me one. "Your sister's health is poor. Your Wendy, be generous." Every time Dad traveled, he'd give me $5, but I never got to keep it. It was a rare warmth in my childhood. I believe my dad did love me once. At 4 a.m., the city hadn't woken yet. The screen light burned my eyes as I replied, "I remember. You always gave me $5. You're already 26, and ever since college, you rarely come home. Why not come back this October?" Maybe because of that missing affection growing up, I still longed for love from my parents. I agreed. To dodge strange matchmaking setups, I spent $5,000 renting a boyfriend, creating a fake backstory to show my mom. My boyfriend was Evan, a first-year grad student in A, introduced by a friend. We planned to meet at the train station. Almost time to board, but Evan was nowhere in sight. I was about to call when someone tapped my shoulder. "Hey, Wendy," I turned around, lost in those deep amber eyes. He was tall and slim, in a crisp white hoodie, with a short haircut. Wow, even a mask couldn't hide his youthful charm. But in the photos Nora sent, he was average looking, right? My phone was out, ready for comparison. "Are you Evan?" He smiled, eyes crinkling, "The one and only." Maybe the lower half of his face lowered the looks. I didn't get to check. The boarding announcement was made, and the crowd surged. I stumbled, and Evan quickly caught my shoulder. "Wendy, careful." I got my balance back, but he didn't let go. I gave him a look. He met my gaze, eyes sparkling. "Wendy, you need to play your part. I'm your boyfriend now. I have to watch over you." He was too smooth. Surely I wasn't his first client? We hurried through the gate, and as I struggled with my oversized suitcase on the high steps, Evan reached out. "Let me." With ease, he lifted it with one hand. I felt guilty. "I can carry your backpack." "No need, it's light. Just watch your step, Wendy, and don't trip." "I'm not a kid." I huffed. My foot slipped, and my head hit his backpack. Embarrassed, I felt like digging a hole in the stairs to hide. Evan chuckled, took my hand. Research says smart and pretty girls aren't great with balance. Looks like it's true. What research? I looked at him. He was stifling a laugh. Just made it up, Wendy. Ugh, embarrassing myself in front of you all. On the train, as he took off his mask for a drink, I realized I was wrong. His whole face was flawless. As he drank, his Adam's apple moved, catching the eyes of a girl in front, making her cheeks blush as she typed away on her phone. For sure, she was imagining 108 scenarios too racy to write. Honestly, I shook my head, refocused, pulling out 2 A4 papers from my bag. Here's your character and basic info. Memorize it so you don't slip up. We're classmates in this story, so you can't call me sis. His long fingers tapped lightly on the small table. Can I call you babe? It's just a common word. But from his lips, it sounded way more tender and affectionate. I cleared my throat. Sure, why not? You can call me darling then. He paused, and his tone turned playful. Say it now, Wendy. Darling, he slightly frowned. Is my Wendy stuttering? I glared at him. You're the one who's stuttering. He laughed, his eyes sparkling. Keep it down. Everyone in the carriage heard you. This guy. I huffed. You should look at your notes properly. He flipped through them carelessly, looking a bit disdainful. Dad works for a state-owned company, Mom's a nurse, and I make $50,000 a year, pretty average. It's all pretend anyway. At least give me a Benz G-Wagon to match the guy's status. The match felt right. The carriage wasn't exactly quiet, but I could still hear his whisper. No way, you deserve the best. By the time we got home, it was evening. My sister Zoya opened the door. Evan, out of politeness, took off his mask and greeted her. Hi there. In that moment, his smile lit up the whole dim old hallway. So this is what it means to light up a place. Zoya froze for a solid 3 seconds before blushing. Hello Evan, come on in. She reached out to help with the bags. But Evan stepped back. It's not heavy, I've got it. Zoya playfully pouted. Wendy really kept such a handsome boyfriend hidden from us. Did she send us Evan's worst photos on purpose? That familiar sarcasm, it's been a while. I was about to speak when Evan said, It's not Wendy's fault, I'm not photogenic. How could that be? I'm great at taking photos. I'll take some for Evan next time. And he'll look amazing. Evan put down the bags, glanced at a smiling Zoya. Your skills are indeed good. Zoya was thrilled. How did Evan know that? Saw your posts through Wendy's phone. The pictures do look better than real life. I wanted to laugh so bad. Zoya's face stiffened. At first, it sounded like a compliment, but it seems it isn't. This guy blatantly lies. When did he see my phone? Still, his lies do make one happy. My parents came out from the kitchen at this point, obviously dazzled by Evan's appearance. After the pleasantries, my mom called the shop downstairs to send up some roast goose and half a roast duck. Clearly, it's Evan's looks earning us these perks. While Evan took a trip to the bathroom, Zoya sidled up to me. Sis, Evan's not really your boyfriend, is he? I paused. If he's not mine, is he yours? You've never liked interacting with guys. And you're pretty just average looking. Don't wear makeup. Where do you find such a handsome boyfriend? My fists clenched. You know why I didn't like hanging with boys, don't you? When I just returned to live with our parents, I wasn't familiar with the village kids. But Zoya got along great with them. I don't know what she said, but one time after school, 4 or 5 village boys swung me around near a manure pit, as if I were a swing, saying if I dared to bully her again, they'd throw me in. I'll never forget that suffocating stench, those fat, writhing white maggots. It was my mom who found me and brought me home. She knew Zoya was behind it but only gave her a light scolding, then told me, since Zoya was delicate, and our parents thought she had a gentle nature, I shouldn't calculate with her like that. From then on, I stayed away from boys. It wasn't until boarding school and high school that I really recovered. Zoya shrugged dismissively. Childhood prank. No need to hold on to it forever. Don't be so petty. A prank. The nightmares and the shadows that troubled me for years. To her it was just a prank. At dinner, my parents delicately inquired about Evan's background. My dad runs his own business. Wait, what? That's not what I rehearsed with him. Zoya said. Business wasn't easy during the pandemic. Luckily, My dad's company made about 10 million net last year. Not as good as previous years, but at least no loss. My mom works in the city hospital as an associate chief physician. My salary plus investments is about $160,000 a year. My parents were stunned. Zoya's eyes were shining even brighter. I pinched Evan hard under the table. That's too much. Zoya was the first to recover and laughed. Sis, your standards are too high. Evan is so outstanding, yet you said his looks and background are just average. Just how good does someone have to be up to your standards? My mom chimed in. Exactly, someone like Evan is a rarity in our area. Evan looked at me, giving a doting smile. Just average, barely good enough for Wendy. Zoya propped her chin on her hand, acting innocent. Really envy Wendy, always so charming. Since we were young, a lot of handsome guys liked Wendy. They often took her out for all-night parties. Though Wendy always said they were just friends. Evan, you're impressive for winning Wendy's heart. Is she saying I have a messy private life? I scoffed. She's talking about herself, not me. Zoya was taken aback. Then her eyes turned red. Did I say something wrong again to upset you? Evan, please just pretend you didn't hear. I was just talking nonsense. My mom scolded me. Your sister just speaks quickly, no malicious intent. Why are you, the older sis, holding a grudge against her? Eat up, don't let Evan laugh at us. She served me a piece of fish with bones. That bent, hook-like bone was like a sharp needle piercing my eyes, both sore and painful. I was traumatized by fish bones as a child, and have rarely eaten fish since. But Zoya especially loves it, so the family makes various types of fish dishes every few days. Mom, I don't like fish. Then eat some lamb. Your dad went to such great lengths to get it. I felt nauseated. I don't eat lamb either. Mom was visibly displeased from being refused twice. What won't you eat? Zoya began again. Sis, just to treat you, Mom and Dad went grocery shopping at 5 a.m. Don't be so picky, eat something. Evan, is sis always like this with you too? Evan gave her a long look. Wendy's not as easy to please as you. Zoya's lips curled up slightly. Evan put a big piece of lamb in her bowl and said, You're not picky. You should have more of this delicious food. Zoya's face froze. Evan smiled and gave her 2 more pieces. Eat up before it gets cold. Zoya looked like she was about to gag. My mom took the lamb away. Zoya doesn't eat lamb. Evan laughed at me. Looks like we need to come back more often. Otherwise, the lady will only remember your sister's taste and forget what you like and don't. My mom blushed, looking a bit embarrassed. My dad tried to break the awkwardness. Wendy, just get what you like. So he didn't remember either, and didn't want to make a wrong move. After dinner, my dad pulled Evan to have some tea, and I helped clean up. I had just brought the dishes to the kitchen when Zoya came in. She had redone her lipstick, her blood-red lips moving as she said, Sis, Evan is really nice. You should let me have him. I slammed the dishes into the sink. Wasn't stealing kind enough for you? Zoya shrugged. What do you mean stealing? You guys weren't even together. You just thought I was better. Kent was my high school classmate. During our senior year winter break, we hit it off at a reunion. Afterward, we exchanged good morning and good night texts, went to the movies, had dinners, and walked around together. We even held hands once. I thought it was the beginning of a relationship, but a month later, Zoya announced their status on social media. Kent messaged me to apologize, saying it was all his fault, and Zoya was blameless, asking me to not make it hard for her. Do you remember you have a boyfriend? I asked. So what? Even married people can get divorced. Changing a boyfriend is normal. Plus, his family's shops are losing money, and I don't want to marry into that mess. She had no shame. Sis, I like Evan. Let's see who can win. I was furious. Zoya, what's your problem? Why do you like to take my things? Her smile was dark. Because you're so good at studying. Like you're taking mom and dad from me too. But they are my mom and dad too, and I never took their love from her. Our argument got loud enough to bring my mom over. What's going on here? Zoya instantly changed her face. Leaning on the sink and playing weak, I feel a bit dizzy. Wendy wants me to finish washing the dishes before I rest. My mom got worried right away. Are you having low blood sugar again? Go lie down. Wendy, why would you make her work when she's not feeling well? You've been away for 2 years. Can't you wash the dishes just this once? I tossed the sponge down. I'm not feeling great either. Going to my room. My mom tried to say more, but I shut the bedroom door and opened the closet to hang some clothes I brought. Every shelf was packed full, Zoya's things everywhere. There was a knock. My mom came in holding a glass of milk, asking what's wrong. Need some medicine? No, I'm fine now. She saw the packed closet and explained, since you're often away, Zoya's things overflowed. I'll sort them out for you. No need, I said. I'm leaving in a few days anyway. My mom sat on the bed. Wendy, are you unhappy? Talk to me. Since you were little, you always kept things in. Learn from Zoya to speak up or act spoiled sometimes. The dim yellow light fell on her face. She looked much older, wrinkles at the corners of her eyes. In this short 10-square-foot room, it felt like she was only my mom. I replied softly, only those who are favored can act spoiled. You never gave me that favor. The room fell into silence. After a while, she rubbed her hands. Your sister isn't very healthy, so your dad and I, Mom, I'm tired. I want to rest. She sighed and left. I sat on the bed for a long time before remembering Evan. He wasn't around, and Zoya was gone too. I messaged him, where are you? Getting some air downstairs. Miss me, Wendy? I walked to the window, seeing Evan in the green area below, saying something that made Zoya giggle. Her laughter pierced through the night. Are you alone? I texted. Evan paused, and then replied, and your annoying sister. Evan came upstairs soon after, with a teasing smile. Your sister's trying to flirt with me. His usual behavior. He leaned in. Wendy, are you upset? I'll stay far away from her then. He hummed a tune while heading to the shower, leaving his jacket draped over a chair. I went to hang it up, but his wallet slipped out and fell open. His ID was visible. I froze when I saw the details. Evan walked in, saw this, scratched his head, and with a helpless shrug said, seems like you found my little secret. He picked up the wallet, closing it with a snap, looking at me with puppy dog eyes. Are you going to kick me out, Wendy? We stared at each other for a good 10 seconds before I chuckled softly. Why kick you out when you can help me out? He grinned, handing his wallet to me. Then let Wendy keep it. With you holding my secret, I'll never escape your grasp. I heard the bathroom door close and immediately reached out to my friend Nora. She was on a road trip with her boyfriend. When she answered, she was already annoyed. I'm still stuck in traffic, ugh. Did you manage to wing it? Nora, let me show you something. I sent her a picture. When we got back on the call, she was squealing, he's so handsome. After getting all the deets, Nora fell silent. How did this happen? I'll look into it. But with him being so handsome, you should totally go for it. I support you, go. In the following days, Evan behaved perfectly well. For my parents are becoming more and more pleased with him. And as a result, they're being kinder to me too. Since I hired him, it's only right to show him around and entertain him a bit. Zoya always tags along. If I'm not happy about it, she'll pout saying, Evan, I'm so bored at home alone. Take me with you and sis. My mom would then join in to back her up. Pretty soon, we hit the 4th of the month. Early in the morning, Mom and Dad woke us up. Today was the day to go dig lotus roots in the countryside. Since my grandparents passed, we hardly visit the countryside. We gave most of the land away, except for the pond near our house. Evan helped set up the power for draining water, while my mom went to find some baskets. Zoya kept fanning Evan with a small fan, saying, Evan, you can do this too? You're amazing. Evan glanced at her, saying, anyone who's gone to high school knows how to do this. My dad waded into the mud with special gear on, and soon pulled out a big fat lotus root. Smiling, he handed it to me. Wendy, take this and wash it. The front part is the most tender, eat that first. The morning sunlight cast a gentle glow on his wrinkles. I remember you loved these when you were little. Zoya whined, Dad, I want one too. We'll dig more. This one's for your sister first. Maybe because it was fresh out of the mud, it was still warm and sticky when I took it. We had lunch at Uncle's place in the countryside. Dad cooked lotus root fritters, still steaming when he served them to me. Made these just for you, dig in. Remember when you were 8? You ate almost half a plate of these. They were oily and salty, not exactly tasty, but I still had 2. The dinner table was filled with joy, with family urging me to eat more, warmed by the autumn sunshine. My smile gradually became genuine. Then Evan leaned over and whispered, "Be careful. Often behind a gentle appearance lurks sharp fangs." After lunch, my cousin dragged Evan off to test his new van, and I stayed to help Auntie clear the table. She insisted I sit down and rest. My dad lit a cigarette. Seemed like he wanted to say something. My mom, nudged by Zoya, finally spoke. "Wendy, your dad and I are planning to buy a house. We're a bit short, and we were hoping you could help with some money." Evan was right. The cool autumn breeze felt like knives on my face. I chuckled. "How much are you short?" 300,000. My tone shot up. "Where would I get that kind of money?" Dad rubbed his hands. "Think of it as a loan from us to you. You graduated from a prestigious college and found a good job. You could think of a way. We're getting old and can't manage much now." Uncle chimed in. "Wendy, your parents supported you through college. You should give back a little." Unbelievable. I financed college with student loans. Even support myself with part-time jobs for living expenses. Only getting a few red envelopes during the new year. I've already sent home quite a bit after graduating. Isn't that giving back? I set my gaze at Zoya. She spent more. So why not ask her to give back? Auntie quickly said, "Zoya has the heart too. Isn't she buying the house for your parents to live in?" "What?" I widened my eyes. "Who's really buying the house?" Mom hastily clarified, "Of course, it's your dad and I buying it. But due to our age, we can't secure a loan. So we're using your sister's name. You can get a good apartment for 50,000 in our county. So they want me to come up with 300,000, yet the deed would have Zoya's name on it. Brilliant plan." Dad smoked. His face in the swirls looked wrinkled and ugly. "You work far away, barely come home in a year, and it's your sister taking care of us. You're more capable, you put in the money, she does the work. That's how it is in most families." Mom added, "Besides, it doesn't matter whose name's on it, we're all family, right? This new house is your home too." "Do I really have a home? I have parents, a sister, yet I feel homeless." I looked around at everyone at the table. So sad. Just for a moment, I thought I was loved. Holding back tears, I said, "Fine. I'll borrow for the down payment, cover the mortgage, and the name goes to me. You two can live there." Zoya quickly said, "No way. Turns out, just a little test, and their real intentions come to light." I looked up at the blue sky, blinked back tears and said, "Then I can't spare any money." Dad hitched his seat in anger. "What's with you? We raised you after all. Does providing food mean enough? As daughters, did you ever love me like Zoya? I just wanted some favoritism, even just once." Tears overflowed, and I yelled, "Did you? Did you ever?" The yard fell silent. I took a deep breath. "I'm not giving any money." Just then my phone buzzed. It was Nora calling. I quickly wiped the tears and walked away to answer. Nora was frantic. I finally got the scoop. "This Evan isn't what you think, he's risky. Always takes jobs at places with little sisters. Anyway, be super careful. He's got a past." "Yeah, got it. Why do you sound like that?" "My dad asked me for 300,000 to buy a house for my sister." Nora loudly replied, "Tell them to get lost." After hanging up, the table was already tidied up. Mom was helping clean the stove in the kitchen. I went to get my coat. She dried her hands and approached, whispering, "We talked it over. We get you can't afford it, but maybe Evan could. You want me to ask him?" With Zoya nodding over her shoulder, she replied, "Not that. Evan's a great guy. Maybe let him date your sister. If they get together, the house isn't an issue, and neither is our future care. You have a degree, earn well, surely can find someone else." I underestimated their favoring and shamelessness. "Do you think he's a pet I can just hand over?" Zoya confidently claimed, "Just stay out of the way. I'll find a way to make him my boyfriend." Dad sat silently smoking, saying nothing. I laughed out of frustration. "He's not some rich heir. I hired him to impress you guys. He's not as great as you think. Don't count your chickens before they hatch. Sis, if you want him, just say so. No need for a ridiculous excuse." Zoya fiddled with her phone for a second, then showed it to me. "I've checked. His family is loaded." It was some company's buy-do page, detailing their scale, annual profits, and pics of the management team. In one big group photo, Evan stood next to the president. They looked so alike, definitely father and son. No doubt he's the heir. I stared at Zoya. Don't even think about it. I brought him here, and I'll take him back. Zoya just shrugged, her eyes slowly turning red. Then she clutched her chest. Dad, Mom, I'm feeling dizzy. My heart is racing. And she slid down the chair. My mom freaked out. My dad jumped off his stool, picked her up, and yelled at me. Why are you upsetting her? You know she's not well. My mom's tears were flowing. She's your sister. What's wrong with giving her a break? Do you have to push it so far? My aunt put down her bowl and said, Wendy, your parents are getting old. Cut them some slack. Nora's words echoed in my head from a phone call. Somehow he wreaks havoc in families, especially with sisters. One even went mad. Just be careful. Looking at those accusing faces, I felt drained. I said, do whatever you want. I've already warned you. Dad carried Zoya outside, asking Evan to drive them to the hospital. Wendy, aren't you coming? No room, no room. My mom pressed him into the driver's seat. Evan, drive. I watched them fuss over Zoya's low blood sugar, as if she'd drop dead any second. As the car door closed, Zoya opened her eyes and gave me a smug wink. It was truly ironic. My aunt came up to me. Wendy, when you have kids, you'll understand. Your parents care for you too. If I ever got married, I'd have only one kid. I'd give all my love to her, make her the only princess. I was too tired to argue. I went back to my grandparents' house. The old place was falling apart, with cobwebs in every corner. Since Grandma passed, it had been untouched. Opening an old cabinet, I was hit by a musty smell. Inside were my childhood clothes, toys, and comic books, all neatly organized. I laughed as tears splashed onto the floor. I remembered when my parents took me away. Grandma had tearfully held my dad's hand, saying, Wendy is like my own. I know you aren't that close to her, but she's your daughter. Treat her well. Dad promised earnestly, don't worry, Mom. How can I neglect my own daughter? As I left, Grandma walked behind the car for half a mile, wiping her tears as she waved. I crouched down and cried my eyes out. I had been loved deeply, though I was just a grain of sand to my parents. I was a precious pearl to my grandparents. So Wendy, stop hoping for the scraps of love from them. From now on, say goodbye to them, and love yourself wholeheartedly. After crying for who knows how long, I felt calmer. I stepped out of the old house. The afternoon sun was warm, painting the distant mountains in golden hues. Red maples dotted amongst green trees, so vibrant and beautiful. When you stop chasing empty hopes and choose self-love, you'll notice all the beauty around you. I had Evan's contact. I'm stuck at the hospital by your sister. Help me out, Wendy. No matter what, I had to clear things up with him. Before leaving the countryside, my aunt handed me a bag. It had dried bamboo shoots and beans. Take it to City A. I dried them myself. You can't buy this stuff outside. No parent is flawless, just I took a step back, cutting her off. You can buy anything on Amazon. And if it's bad, you leave a bad review. What are you saying? I'm saying I don't want to owe you anything. Nor do I want you guilt-tripping me later with these small favors. Think about why your daughter doesn't visit before meddling in my affairs. My uncle was furious. Is this how you talk to your elders? I walked towards the setting sun, leaving his endless rants behind. As I reached the hospital, I got a call from an unknown number. It was Kent. Wendy, I can't reach Zoya. No one was home. Do you know where she is? She's at the hospital. Kent sounded worried. Is she all right? Is it serious? You can see for yourself. When I got near the hospital room, Zoya was sweet-talking Evan. Evan, I'm thirsty. Can you get me some water? Evan raised an eyebrow and opened a bottle for her. She blinked innocently. Water from Evan is the sweetest. Evan smirked. That's just spring water sweet. Zoya shook her head and said earnestly, no, it's Evan that's sweet. Next to her was a tattooed guy who chimed in. Hey lovebirds, take it easy. Have some pity on us single folks who haven't even had lunch. Zoya held onto Evan's sleeve tightly, her face flushed as if acknowledging his words. Just then a whirlwind blew past me. Kent rushed to Zoya's side. Filled with concern, Zoya, are you all right? Why didn't you tell me you were hospitalized? Where does it hurt? Zoya's smile slipped, reluctantly letting go of Evan. I entered the room, and Evan greeted me with a smile. Wendy, you're here. The tattooed guy was stunned. Kent snapped out of it and glared at Evan. Who are you? Evan just touched his nose, staying calm and collected. Probably her brother-in-law. Uff. The tattooed guy spat out his water, eyes wide with confusion. Evan looked a bit let down as he turned to Zoya. So Zoya has a boyfriend, huh? You never mentioned that before. Kent didn't look happy. Zoya glanced between Kent and Evan, and seemed to make up her mind. He's my ex-boyfriend. Kent's eyes went wide. Zoya, stop joking around. We're engaged. You had to admit, Zoya's acting was pretty convincing. She teared up first. Kent, I don't love you anymore. You're always too busy with work to pay me any attention. I send you messages, and you take forever to respond. I can't wait around like this any longer. Let's break up. Don't bother me again. Kent tried to defend himself. I'm doing all this for us, for a better future. I tapped Kent on the shoulder. Hey, hold off on the guilty explanations and listen to this. I played back a recording. Zoya's harsh voice echoed, so what? Even married couples can divorce. Switching to a new boyfriend is normal for me. Plus, his family's businesses are in debt. I don't want to suffer by marrying him. Zoya's face turned red, and she jumped out of the hospital bed to grab my phone. But it was already too late. The recording finished playing. She looked really aggrieved, then turned her teary eyes to Evan. Evan, I didn't really mean it. The real reason is I like you. The tattooed guy hiccuped in shock. Evan looked amused and asked, is that so? Zoya blushed bright red, nodding hard. Kent was livid. Don't you have any explanation for me? Zoya lowered her head. Sorry, Kent. You can't force feelings. I really don't have anything for you. Kent laughed, his eyes watering. Oh wow, I'm an idiot, the universe's biggest fool. He patted Evan on the shoulder. Buddy, she's a good girl. Take care of her. Kent stumbled out, and I turned to Evan. Wanna talk? He looked at me warmly. Whenever Wendy needs, I'm here. Zoya got a bit panicky, tugging at his sleeve. Evan, are you mad? I just like you too much. Evan looked at her for a couple of seconds, then tapped her on the head. Get some rest, I'll be back. We headed downstairs of the hospital. Evan dug a pack of cigarettes from his pocket, put one in his mouth, but didn't light it. He's never smoked around me before. It's a hospital, man. He put the cigarette back, coming closer to look into my eyes. You've been crying? He reached out to touch my eyelid, but I sidestepped and stared at him. I know about your past now. Why did you come to my house? Nora had reached out to her junior, Evan. Evan's dad suddenly got sick, but he had already accepted a job he couldn't back out of. So he posted in a reseller group, and Evan got interested and took it on for $1,000. The junior made an easy $4,000. That day when Evan went for a shower, I saw his ID card. His name and age didn't match the details Nora provided. Plus, he looked way better than the junior's picture. That made me suspicious, so I had Nora look into it. Evan looked down for a few seconds. His smile seemed innocent and sincere. I wanted to help you vent, Wendy. The more harmless he seemed, the more dangerous I felt he was. I can handle my own stuff. His smile got wider. Bet your solution is cutting ties with that family, right? Wendy, you're too soft. I clenched my fists. Even if I want revenge, I can do it myself. As the sunset tinged the sky, Evan raised a hand. Sunlight slipped through his fingers onto his face, casting it in shadows. Wendy, let me handle it. My hands are already dirty anyway. The sun dipped below the horizon, leaving his face in the shadows. His voice turned deeper. Just repaying your kindness. We've met before? The hospital lights flickered on, highlighting his flawless face as he looked deeply at me. Yeah, we've met. When? He smiled. Wendy, figure it out yourself. I really hope you do, or I'll be heartbroken. I racked my brain going through memories. Couldn't recall anything though. I gotta go before the prey escapes. He put a hand over his chest, his voice low and persuasive. Wendy, don't worry. I'm always here for you. Anyone who messes with you will pay 100-fold. Crazy, called Nora as I left the hospital. She agreed. He's a lunatic, like those crazy possessive types in novels. Stay away from him. Just get back here. We hung up, and Kent's car pulled up. Wendy, wanna grab a bite and chat? As we waited for food, he leaned on his hand in pain. Wendy, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have listened to her sweet talk. I replied calmly, it's all in the past. His eyes were bloodshot. Didn't get to tell you earlier, but my dad's factory got redeveloped. We're getting millions from it. Been busy with that. Had hoped to surprise her, guess not. Madness flashed in his eyes. How about we get together and drive those two nuts? Soft lighting from the chandelier. I shook my head softly. No thanks. I don't want to settle for someone just to get back at her. Midway through dinner, Kent checked his phone habitually. His fists clenched tightly. Zoya had posted a picture captioned, "Men who can take care of you are the best." Even though it was blurred, it was clearly Evan. Kent stared at his phone for a long time, his voice hoarse. "Do you think she'll regret it?" "Yeah, she definitely will." Kent laughed, at first softly, then uncontrollably until all the guests in the restaurant turned to look. "Can't believe it's you comforting me here. This world is a joke." After dinner, he insisted on taking me home to get my stuff. The car stopped at the entrance of the neighborhood. As I got out, he called after me, "Wendy, if I hadn't added her contact back then, would things be different for us?" I cut him off. If it wasn't her, it would have been someone else. "Kent, you just weren't committed enough." I turned away, ignoring whatever expression he was wearing. After knocking on the door, Zoya's dad's voice called out sweetly, "Coming." But when she saw it was me, her face dropped immediately. "Thought you weren't coming back." I couldn't be bothered with her, and went inside to pack my things. It didn't take long since I didn't have much. She leaned against the door smugly. "Leaving already? That's no fun." "You know where Evan went?" "He went downtown to get me a milk tea." As I walked out with my suitcase, she strutted after me, boasting, "Wendy, whether it's our parents, a boyfriend, or whatever, they're always mine. You can never take them from me. Honestly, I've reached my limit." I put the suitcase down and slapped her. Hard. My hand stung, and her face swelled up quick. You hit me?" I grabbed her hair and gave 2 more slaps, one on each cheek. "Yeah, I did. I've put up with this for years." Looking furious, Zoya tried to grab my hair, shouting, "You dare hit me." It was about to turn into an all-out brawl when a hand shot out, grabbing Zoya's wrist. "What happened to your face?" Zoya switched to a pitiful look in Evan's concerned gaze. "Evan, Wendy hit me. Look at my face." Evan pressed her face, making her wince in pain. He turned to me solemnly, "Wendy, I didn't expect you to be so cruel. Zoya's not the type to lash out like this." Zoya was dumbfounded. Does this mean those slaps were in vain? Of course, she wouldn't let it go and started crying. As the kitchen door opened, our parents came out. When Mom saw her daughter's face swollen like a pig's head, she looked heartbroken. "Wendy, talk things out. How could you hit someone? Your sister just got out of the hospital. Is this something you'd do?" I grabbed my suitcase, ready to leave. Zoya cried even louder, "Dad, Mom, it hurts." Mom, still holding a knife from cooking, blocked my way. "You need to apologize to Zoya today, or we'll act like you're no longer our daughter." Dad said sternly, "If you still consider us family, apologize to your sister." The sharp knife was so close to my face, like they were willing to cut ties with me if I didn't comply. I saw my warped reflection in it, a reflection of my life spent craving parental love. I laughed. "Great. Then let's pretend you never had me. Just keep your precious little daughter forever." My parents were shocked. "What do you mean?" I shrugged. "What it sounds like. If you want to reach me, do it through a court summons." My boldness caught them off guard. They didn't know how to react, just stood there stunned. As I dragged my suitcase out, Evan helped me over the threshold. He whispered in a light, delighted tone, "Congratulations on your new beginning." With a slam, the door shut behind me. That house was no longer my concern. I blocked my parents and wanted to block Zoya too. Nora persuaded me to keep watching. You can see her updates every day. Zoya's social media updates were frequent. Disneyland one day, Michelin meals the next. Shopping for luxury goods or getting her hair done. She quit her stable job with a $4,000 monthly salary, hanging around with Evan. It seemed like Evan requested that she never shows his face in her posts. It's either blurred or only his back. Nora took my phone, squinting to zoom in on the LV details. After a while she concluded, "Looks fake." She flipped through, "This watch is too fake. Anyone who knows the real stuff can tell. And this, Nora scanned through. Seems like everything's fake, but your sister probably can't tell the difference." I sipped my drink. "She won't suspect they're fake. I mean, she's dating an actual rich kid." A few days later, my sister posted about investing in stocks with a photo of her censored account. "Evan is teaching me investing. Looking forward to hitting the limit." Entering the stock market as a rookie is risky. Surprisingly, 2 days later, she posted again, stocks hit the limit. Evan's impressive. I've been following that stock. After that peak, it just kept dropping, losing 40% in no time. No idea if she managed to cash out at the high. Soon, she shared a store purchase contract, saying, Evan says a woman should have some fixed assets. She's crazy. Given the pandemic, physical stores aren't doing well. And she bought into a new, remote strip mall in our city. It's uncertain if she can even rent it out, let alone make a profit. Not long after, she started showing off her driver's license. Thanks to Evan's guidance, finally got my license. 3 days later, she posted a picture of a Beetle. An independent woman needs a car, Evan says. It's not about the cost, but about having your feet in a car working towards your goals. Not wasting time on public transit. Nora and I were impressed. Evan's persuasion skills were something else. Nora hit me up every night, mostly to catch up on Zoya's stories. Her posts were the glue of our friendship. At a gathering, she absent-mindedly flipped through Zoya's updates. She must have spent a fortune. You don't think Evan's paying for all this, do you? Remembering Evan's disdain for getting his hands dirty, I shook my head, doubt it. She keeps calling herself an independent woman. Would an independent woman feel okay with asking a man for money? Nora laughed, good point. I still shared some friends with Zoya. Her posts would flood with likes immediately, creating quite the buzz. Her replies were pretty enthusiastic, in a restrained way that showed off. And in her showing off, there was a hint of smugness. That smugness, in turn, came with a kind of disdain, like she was silently stating nobody could match her. And that's how it went until the end of December. On Christmas Day after work, I found Zoya waiting for me downstairs at the office. She had on a brand new coat, and was standing in these fancy lambskin boots, leaning against a red Porsche, catching everyone's attention who walked by. Wendy alone for the holidays, huh? Evan and I want to treat you to dinner. Evan came out from behind a pillar, smiling warmly at me. I stared at Zoya, face gotten over the swelling. Want a few more hits? Zoya instinctively covered her face, stomping her foot playfully. Evan patted her shoulder reassuringly, and then walked towards me, speaking in a low voice. Really won't join us? I whispered back, what is all this maneuvering about? He raised an eyebrow, teasing me. Why, have you gone soft again, Wendy? Getting close, he murmured, Wendy, they're like snakes. Show them any weakness, and they'll bite you. Don't play the saint. I scoffed, I don't care about her well-being. I just don't get what you're up to. He stood up straight, pointing at the tall building behind me. See the top of that building? To see far, you've got to stand tall. How can you let your heart swell with pride without witnessing life's luxuries? If you're not high enough, how can you have a great fall? Wendy, just watch. The grand show is about to reach its climax soon. Zoya came to City A for cosmetic surgery, getting her nose done. Looks-wise, she's cuter than I am. That's likely why she was able to steal Kent away back in the day. She's always been confident about it too. Normally, she wouldn't need plastic surgery. Evan cleared up my confusion. I told her a few times, she's prettier everywhere than you, except her nose isn't as nice as yours. Zoya just couldn't stand such a comment. She had to do something about it. Evan recommended the clinic that had a previous medical mishap hit the news. They probably paid to suppress it, so it's hard to find info online now. But it made waves back then. A lot of people in City A knew about it. And Evan, he likely knew too. Later that night, I had dinner with Nora, and this story gave us much to talk about. As dinner was winding down, Zoya sent me dozens of photos of food from the revolving restaurant where she and Evan were dining. Wendy, the dishes here are so exquisite and tasty. I wish you could try them too. Trying to make me jealous, eh? I replied with a straw in my mouth. Why not give me a cozy couple selfie with your Evan? How about a kiss? Zoya kept typing and retyping, finally sending, why should I show you that? Nora chuckled. Not that she won't show, but probably can't get a kiss. Maybe to compensate, Zoya sent a picture of a gift box. An LV bag. Evan got this for me. Wendy, do you like it? Next time you can borrow it, I've got too many bags. I nearly hurled. After drinking a bit with Nora, I stumbled home to find a package at my door. I opened it inside to find another LV bag. This season's new release, not cheap, with a handwritten card in the box along with the receipt. Wendy, for you. Whether it's the bag or my heart, it's genuine. Zoya seemed to be in recovery post-surgery because she stayed off social media for about a week. Unexpectedly, a few days later, when I was delivering documents to a client, I bumped into her at the hospital. She was causing quite a scene at the outpatient clinic. "You ruined my nose. Aren't you responsible for it? I want the chief surgeon to come out." Someone took out their phone to film a TikTok video. Fearing bad press, the hospital quickly had a doctor come out to bring her to the office. "No, I'm saying it right here. Explain it to everyone." She used her tablet to show photos of her old look, then took off her mask. A strong influencer vibe slapped me in the face. Her nose used to be round, fitting with her slightly plump face and round eyes. But now it was tall and sharp, unnaturally matched to her face, like a sharp fork stuck in a red apple, completely unappealing. The doctor presented documentation and videos assertively. "You insisted on this model," ignored my multiple suggestions. "Customers are like gods, we had to oblige. Our processes are by the book." The surgery was successful with no after effects. "Keep causing a scene, and we'll call the cops. How can there be no problem?" I got so much uglier. As Zoya's voice trailed off, she caught my eye from the crowd. She suddenly became silent, turning beet red, unable to utter a word. She turned and scurried out. I quickly followed. Zoya, what a classic European nose job. I touched my nose way taller than mine. She glared venomously. "Don't gloat. I can fix it. I'll always be prettier than you." Just after she said it, her phone rang. She cringed like she'd seen a ghost, and after hanging up, she tossed her phone back into her bag and hurried away. And that day marked the opening of Pandora's box. The devil bared its fangs, going after its target. One morning, I got a call from a debt collection agency, asking if I was Zoya's sister. They said she owed $300,000 and had to repay within a month. I chuckled. "We haven't been in contact for ages. Her debt is not my problem." But then the calls kept coming, nearly every day. I'd estimated she'd racked up over $1 million from all these calls. And that wasn't all. Our small town runs in tight circles, word spreads fast. Her classmates and friends started reaching out, asking if I knew where Zoya was. They said she promised to repay within a week, but now she's ghosted them. People owed $3,000, $5,000, even up to $50,000. I couldn't keep track of everyone. At first, she used bank loans to buy cars, open businesses, and invest in stocks, always showcasing high-end venues on her feed. People actually thought she had made it. So when she started borrowing money from people around her, no one saw it coming. That's how it is with people caught in online loans. Just robbing Peter to pay Paul. Totally living day by day. She'd been living in her fantasy world for way too long, thinking she was born to be a princess. She got so used to the compliments that she didn't have the courage to tear down the facade and reveal the tough reality underneath. She just kept borrowing until no one would lend her anymore. And then it all fell apart. Zoya just vanished, and no one could find her. Lots of mutual friends posted on social media and TikTok looking for her, blatantly putting her photos out there with captions like, "This girl owes money and doesn't pay back. Be careful and let me know if you see her." In late January, my mom reached out to me. Her tone was warm and caring, like all our past arguments had never happened. "Wendy, you're almost on break, right? You booked your ticket home yet? We made a lot of bacon this year. We'll cook it for you when you get here." I set down my files and stepped into the hallway. "Ma'am, what do you need?" I caught my mom off guard. "Wendy, this is your mom. Can't you recognize my voice?" "Sorry, ma'am, but you're the ones who said I'm not your daughter anymore. So naturally I can't call you mom." My mom was speechless for a moment, then awkwardly said, "That was just in anger. How could you take it seriously?" "Ma'am, I have work to do, I'm hanging up." "No, don't hang up." My mom anxiously stopped me. "Wendy, you've heard about Zoya, right?" She sounded like she was about to cry. I had no idea she owed so much money. Debt collectors are throwing paint at the door daily. We keep getting notices from the bank and the court. What are we going to do? Pay it off? How? The bank has already repossessed her car, the storefront, and anything else of value. She strung us dry. Evan turned out to be a scammer. Wendy, you're successful and capable. Could you help your sister? She is, after all, your blood. She's not well, hiding somewhere. Who knows if she's sick or starving? My stomach growled, reminding me I hadn't eaten dinner because I'd been working so much. Ma'am, I warned you about Evan. He's not someone you could handle. I said calmly, I need to get dinner now. Goodbye. I blocked her number. She reached out with different numbers, begging me to help Zoya, promising that everyone would treat me equally from now on, and even making an effort to see if I'd had breakfast or dressed warmly. But I wouldn't fall for that sentimental nonsense again, even if they were sincere this time. So what? I didn't care. I didn't need their love. 2 days later, Evan contacted me, inviting me out for dinner and to watch a good show. He waited downstairs in a camel coat. It was a biting winter wind. The sycamore trees were bare. He looked like a sturdy tree bracing against the wind, tilting his head slightly to give me a smile. We drove the Porsche to the restaurant, and before the car even stopped, someone rushed over. It was Zoya. Evan, please help me. She pounded on the driver's side, desperate. Then she saw me in the passenger seat. Her pupils dilated in shock. Wendy, what are you doing here? Evan got out to open my door, and then stood protectively in front of me. Zoya slowly straightened up, suddenly enlightened. You teamed up to trick me. To fool me. Wendy, you bitch. Evan, with cold indifference in his voice, said, I'm the one who tricked you, who fooled you. Wendy has nothing to do with it. Zoya screamed, you manipulated my feelings, turned me into this, you jerk, you scumbag. I'm going to expose you. Evan smiled, his tone cruel. You did this to yourself. I warned you when you bought those stocks to sell them off, but you got greedy and wanted more. Did I push you to quit your job, or tell you to buy that car or the storefront? Did I ever encourage you to get surgery? I even advised against it. The dinners we had, the places I took you, all real. He smiled innocently. The only thing fake was the luxury items, but I still spent plenty on them. I never held your hand, never kissed you, never defined us as a couple. You can go ahead and expose or sue me. He raised his eyebrow, like he was watching a prey struggling in a trap. Let's see who's right or wrong. Zoya was visibly shaking, a mix of fear, shock, anger, and helplessness swirling in her eyes like a storm. She demanded, you're doing this for her, right? Why? What's wrong with me compared to her? Evan took my hand decisively. You're no match for her, because I want to give her all my love. She deserves it. When you took away all her warmth, did you think about now? In the distance, the sky was filled with rolling dark clouds, like an enormous black curtain casting Zoya in shadow. She stood there, backlit, consumed by anger, confusion, and helplessness. It was a look I knew well, because it mirrored my own during those teenage years. Back then, I couldn't understand why, despite all my hard work, obedience, and good grades, my parents just didn't seem to love me. I didn't know what I needed to do. Only when I went to college did I learn to let it go and treat myself better. Really, there's no reason. Favoritism doesn't need a reason. My parents could unconditionally favor Zoya. So surely there would be someone out there who would always favor me. And if that person never came, I decided I'd just favor myself. Zoya stared at me intensely, her lips twitching. Maybe she was about to beg. I calmly met her gaze. After a long silence, she laughed bitterly. I'll never ask you for help. Never in my life. Halfway through lunch, it started snowing. Snow is pretty rare in the winter in City A. There was a buzz in the restaurant. Evan put down his fork and quietly watched the snow outside. I really hate snow. Why? Wendy, are you free? Come with me somewhere. I never imagined he'd take me to a cemetery. The photo, already fading, showed a woman with straight features, probably in her 30s. Evan placed a bunch of baby's breath flowers down. Mom, I brought a friend to see you. You must have seen her again down below. Don't go soft. Let her be. Snowflakes gathered on his coat as he quietly began to tell his story. Evan's mom was pretty outstanding. She came from a backward village and became a key player at a hospital at a young age. She had a great relationship with Evan's dad. However, her sister wasn't so lucky. She got involved with a boyfriend who was violent and ended up getting beaten up. Evan's mom, being soft-hearted, let her sister stay with her. Evan's mom was respected at work And her brother-in-law was talented and gentle. But the sister started having other thoughts. By the time Evan's mom realized what was happening, her sister was already pregnant and begging for forgiveness, hoping to keep the baby. Evan's mom never thought she'd invited trouble into her home. In the turmoil, she drove out in the snow to calm down and got into an accident with a truck. She died, and she was pregnant too. Evan's dad was heartbroken and held a grand funeral. 6 months later, he secretly married the sister and had another son. Maybe it was karma because their younger son died at 10 after sneaking off on Evan's motorcycle. Evan's dad, now older and less capable, couldn't have any more kids, so he decided to bring Evan back and raise him. Evan laughed bitterly. That's why he hated sisters who played the victim and went after their sisters' boyfriends. Especially since Zoya took the love that should have been his. So he punished such sisters again and again. The snowflakes covered him. I tiptoed and gently brushed the snow off his head. Let it go, Evan, let it go. Love yourself well. Evan turned to look at me. I said softly, if your mom were still here, she wouldn't want you to be haunted by childhood shadows. You were too young then. You couldn't have stopped what happened. Your mom's death wasn't your fault. Evan's eyes turned red as he slowly squatted by the tombstone, crying uncontrollably. I'm sorry, Mom. I had the chance to tell you, but that woman told me not to. She lied that telling you would make you sad. If only I had told you earlier. Evan cried like a 3-year-old. On the drive back, we were both exhausted. We didn't say a word the whole way. At the red light, the snow outside grew heavier. He suddenly spoke up. Wendy, I actually don't hate snow that much. The day I met you, it was snowing heavily too. But I still can't remember when I met you. It's okay, he smiled, watching the falling snowflakes. Remembering you is enough. During the new year, I stayed in City A. On New Year's Eve, Nora called, saying she'd come get me to celebrate with them. When I got downstairs, I saw Evan, wearing a white down coat, smiling at me. Wendy, I'm alone too. Let's make do together. Kent called me on the 2nd day of the new year to wish me well, and said he was getting married on the 8th. He asked if I could come. That was fast. He found someone suitable and wanted to settle down. Later, a high school friend told me his fiancée was a childhood neighbor, also someone from a relocated family. They were childhood sweethearts, well matched in social standing. I went back and met a few friends. On the wedding day, Zoya showed up, wearing a mask and begging Kent to get back together. We were together for 3 years. You loved me so much. I don't believe you're getting married so soon. Are you just upset? Let's get back together. Kent, I've realized that you're the one I love the most. In their struggle, her mask was pulled off. God, what a distorted face, it startled me. Her nose job had gone wrong, and she couldn't accept it, so she kept getting it fixed at unreliable places, which left her in deep debt. What was once an okay face was now ruined. Her nose was crooked, and whenever she got emotional, the stitches turned red. Her lip fillers were odd too, like a roughly split sausage. Kent looked at her with disdain. Zoya, look at yourself in the mirror. Under everyone's judgment, Zoya put her mask back on and fled. After the banquet, my parents showed up. At first, they stood against the light, and I didn't recognize them. They looked over a decade older. During the meal, someone gossiping told me Zoya tricked them into mortgaging their house for loans. When they couldn't repay, the bank took the house. Now in their old age, they had to return to a rundown house in the countryside with no money. Going to the bathroom, doing laundry, cooking, all were inconvenient. If they got sick, they couldn't get to a hospital in time. Moreover, the village people gossiped about them, so they felt too ashamed to go out. Outside the hotel, my mom took my hand. Wendy, you talked about buying a house for us under your name before. Could we do that now? It doesn't have to be big, 2 bedrooms and a living room is fine. It's unbearably cold in the countryside in winter. Your dad and I have rheumatism, and it's hard to walk. My mom cried as she tugged at my sleeve. It's our fault. We spoiled her too much. Thinking back, she never really treated us well, just sweet-talked us. But you bought us ACs in summer, heaters in winter. You replaced our appliances, brought us food and clothes. You're the good daughter. Please forgive us. Let's be a happy family. I yanked my hand away. But you're not good parents to me. I said, any more contact will be through the court. Sue me, and I'll pay support per the judgment, not a penny more. I don't have spare money or love. That night, I dreamed about my first year in college. It was a bitter cold winter in City A. I called my mom, asking her to send me warm clothes from home. She said, your sister took your clothes, you should buy new ones. But she never sent me money. I ended up using my allowance to buy a warm coat. When I went to collect my package, I saw a boy, shivering in a sweater, huddled at the corner, lips turning blue. I asked him, why aren't you wearing a jacket? He said it's in my dad's car. He left with my brother and forgot me. Need me to call your dad for you? I already did. He said he'd hit traffic if he turned back to pick me up, and told me to take the bus home. I could see tears in his eyes, but I didn't have any money on me. Whatever, even if I froze to death, he wouldn't shed a tear for me, right? What was I thinking at that moment? I can't remember. I only recall opening the package and handing him the army green coat. Here, wear this. If you freeze to death, I'd cry for you. What about you? I lied and acted like everything was great. My parents will buy me a new one. Take care of yourself, really love yourself. I was telling him that, and maybe telling myself too. I gave him $5 for the bus, and turned back towards school. He chased after me shouting, my name's Evan, what's your name? I didn't turn around, just waved him off. Evan, so we met back then. The end.